Okay, so we've got an excellent audience here today, and such a pleasure to have you both on stage with me. So Nadine and Jean, there's so many interesting stories that you can tell about your work and your journey. So Nadine, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization company, Proximi.
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Nadine Hashash Hanam. I'm a reconstructive surgeon in the UK, and I'm co-founder of Proximi. And Proximi is an augmented reality platform that allows surgeons to virtually transport themselves into any setting to collaborate, guide, train, and teach, and basically virtually scrub into any operation around the world, basically to the betterment of the patient at the end of the day. I've worked with Jean before. We were trainees together years ago. And yeah, it's great to be on stage with him again today.
Awesome. So Nadine, you've essentially founded a platform based on augmented reality that allows a surgeon into any room, anywhere in the world, to assist another surgeon with surgery, to guide them, to teach them. Is it a two-way conversation? How does it work?
It's a two-way conversation. So it's basically using the elements of augmented reality as well as video streaming and basic telecommunications. So we've kind of integrated all those platforms into Proximi, which is the platform we use now.
All right, fantastic. Okay, Jean, we'll obviously get back to you and so much more for you to tell us. But Jean, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, it's great to be here. So my name is Jean. My mic is not working.
Is Jean's mic working?
I'll use the
Perhaps the
old-fashioned
tech
mic.
team can help us out.
Okay,
there should be some techies around here who can...
It's fine. I'll use this mic, Paul. So my name is Jean. I was training in surgery up until about 3 years ago in the UK. And I am the co-founder of a company called Touch Surgery, which is a free-to-download app that anyone can access here. We've built a technology that can take surgical process and essentially deliver it into systems globally. Touch Surgery has got over 1.6 million registered users. We're in Harvard, Hopkins, a bunch of different institutions in the US. Today we are training surgeons, and tomorrow we're going to be supporting surgeons.
Okay, great. So, Jean, as the founder of Touch Surgery, you are essentially working with universities, you're working with residents, you're working with hospitals to encourage access to practicing surgery. So what is that like? What is that like for a practicing surgeon to be on your platform?
Good question. I've got the mic working.
Excellent.
So the first time that I learned how to operate was on a patient, right? And I wasn't learning how to operate on a patient in just an average institution. I was learning in a pretty good institution in London, right? And actually, everywhere, right, surgeons learn how to operate on patients. Yes, we're supervised. Yes, there are cadaveric models, but learning to operate on a patient is not the right thing to do. In fact, there's a saying in surgery, which is see one, do one, teach one. I don't know how many people are patients in this room, but that doesn't make me feel great. So really for us, you know, it was about trying to take surgical process and enabling surgeons to be able to rehearse, practice anywhere, anytime through a very simple technology that's available on their phone. And so that's really kind of why we started what we do.
Okay, great. Now I can echo your thoughts. I can understand that you might not want to be that patient someone's practicing on.
Yep.
So I'm sure there's a lot of usage for your application that you've developed. So tell us a little bit more. You know each other from a previous work experience,
Yep.
and now you find yourself working in the same medtech space. What's that like?
It's interesting, it's fun, it's exciting.
Okay.
I think that surgery needs a huge amount of innovation, right? I think that there are a lot of companies right now that are trying to look at building self-driving cars, which is great, but there are plenty of people who want to drive cars, right? You know, there aren't a shortage of people who want to drive cars. I think healthcare, you know, is one of those areas which needs a huge amount of innovation. And I think that needs to come from people who understand the problems, so the insiders of healthcare. And I think physicians should be involved in building these things.
So thank you for sharing that. I understand, yeah, I can imagine what you're saying. And I was reading an interview earlier actually with you, and you'd said, I believe it was 5 billion people that don't have access to proper, safe surgery around the world today.
Yeah.
So that's 5 billion people that don't have access to proper, safe surgery. And when we think about what that means, we are so fortunate here in Dubai, but also perhaps some of the countries that we come from, that we do have that access. So tell us a little bit, does Proximy want to improve that? I read that you work with a lot of NGOs.
I think that's a very relevant point, and those numbers are staggering, and to be able to find enough surgeons who are going to be able to tackle that problem is virtually impossible. And so we have to think of smart ways and technologies that can allow us to force multiply the expertise and the skill sets that are already available. And we need to be able to force multiply that expertise, and that's more concentrated in certain parts of the world, to share it and democratize it really to everyone. And so one of the key aims for Proximy, whilst we do a lot in terms of doctors collaborating together and teaching hospitals and other hospitals, and we do a lot with regards to training and education, we also have a social impact arm, and that's really focused on helping and enabling NGOs to be able to go out and provide care and provide expertise in those resource poor areas and areas that don't have that expertise. I mean, if you imagine, in some countries they don't even have the ability for a surgeon to take their appendix out, which is a very standard procedure in most of the developed world and in the Middle East as well. So it's being able to use the technology to have an impact. So I think augmented reality is a great technology. I think there's a lot of great technologies out there. But for us, it was really about taking that technology, harnessing it in a way that's simple, that's practical, that's powerful, and that's going to really change the patient's lives. And we hear about a lot of stories where people have used Proximy to try and impact patients' lives, and that's really what matters to us.
Yeah, I think that's great that you say that, Nadine, and that you also emphasize that point. I was reading the interview with you earlier saying that your involvement with NGOs is a priority. So what does that look like for you in the future? So here we have this challenge of 5 billion people not having access to safe surgery. Both of your platforms are well equipped to help solve this problem. How does that look practically?
I mean, at the moment, Proximy is already located in institutions in Yale, and UCL in London, Royal Free Hospital, at the American University of Beirut. So these are leading teaching institutions that are using it within their centers and within their hub and spoke model of hospitals. But what a lot of these institutions are also offering is that they want to play a role in shaping and helping deliver care to those resource poor areas. I do a lot of global surgery. I travel to Vietnam and other places in the world to try and help, for a week, a year, or 2 weeks a year, and that's great, but we want to have that continuously. And so there are hundreds and thousands of surgeons like me who are keen to do that, but don't have the facility or the platform to do that. And so Proximy, whilst it plays a lot of role in the developed world, is also doing that in the developing and resource poor areas.
And
it's really about crowdsourcing that knowledge and connecting the dots, really connecting the surgeons around the world.
Sure. So I remember when we started working on mGirls, which was the app that Paul quickly mentioned in the beginning, the challenge that we were trying to face and help was, it was in South Africa, where girls and young women don't have access to the health information that they need, which obviously leads to many complications later on in life. And one of the main things that we did is we built our platform on a USSD platform, which allows everybody to have access without necessarily needing 3G, without needing Wi-Fi, because those costs are way too high for our target audience. Now, I'm aware that you were mentioning you actually also built a similar platform. Can you share a bit about that?
I mean, one of the key aims when we were deciding how to build Proximy on which platform to use was that we wanted to make it accessible to everyone. And most people around the world will have a phone, a tablet, or a computer. I think the wearable technology is fantastic, and Proximy does work with some of the wearable technology. But the aim for us is that we wanted to democratize it. We wanted to make it accessible so that the same user in California, in Boston, in London, in Beirut could also be that user in parts of Africa, parts of Asia. And so what we did is we built it as a hardware agnostic platform that works on low internet requirements, that has graceful degradation and bandwidth adaptability. And so we can hotspot this whole thing off a phone, off a 3G router, even off satellite if we have to. And my co-founders a telecoms engineer and has been working in telecoms and data security for over 25 years. So he very much understands that side of it. And so by, as Jean said, it has to be very doctor-driven or user-driven. And so together we're able to deliver a product that hopefully can have that impact, even in areas that don't have strong internet.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you mentioned Beirut, right? Am I correct that you are originally from Beirut?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So how was the reception? So you left quite early on, right? You grew up in London?
Yeah, I grew up in London.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how has the reception been in London and Beirut to the amazing work that you've done?
I think the reception's been great everywhere. So,
No, yeah, you have, I mean, obviously both of you are award-winning and your work has made huge change, so.
Yeah, look, I think it's great to always, the great thing about technology is I think that it can level the playing field, right? So whether you are in Beirut or whether you are in London or whether you are in Brighton, right? We all have access to the internet, so access to similar levels of content. And that accessibility and that data and that ability to be able to access kind of information and content has leveled the playing field. So I think it's great to be involved in helping achieve that.
And okay, but your actual journey, so where you started your work, I think it was with Dr. Andrew Chow.
Yes.
He's your co-founder?
Andre, yeah.
Andre, okay.
Yeah.
Again, not Andrew.
Yeah.
Andre.
So me and Andre used to work together. We were both at Mary's together. He was my senior, and we used to spend many nights. I was his on-call SHO. He was my senior, and there were many times when we were faced with situations where patients were going to literally die. Right. So establishing a relationship with a co-founder in that kind of environment was good because I trusted him. I trusted him surgically, and I trust him with the work that we do together, right? I think that I'm very lucky to be able to work with someone who sees what I don't see, right? We all have blind spots. No one is perfect, right? There are lots of things that I think I see, and there are lots of parts of the world that I don't see. So for example, in many situations, I can be very analytical, but I can completely miss the emotion, right? Having someone around who complements my ability to see things has been great. So working with Andre has been great.
Yeah, excellent. What about your co-founder? You mentioned that he's strong from a technical background?
I mean, we actually met in Beirut on a surgical mission, which was a Global Smile Foundation mission happening at AUB. So it was cleft surgery for children. And he was actually the treasurer of the charity. And he'd come to Beirut to volunteer his time, really just to help with any admin or anything that could really help us with that week. And, obviously, I'm a kind of wannabe techie. I was really interested in what he was doing in different parts of his career. And as we were talking, he had a Google Glass at the time, and I started asking about augmented reality, and I said, well, how could we use it? And he said, well, you're just going to wear it and sit in the operating room. I said, well, what if I don't have that? What else could I use? And I remember us sitting for about 6 hours. We ended up going to a coffee shop, and it just went on and on, drawing little diagrams, like how could this be useful, and really coming up with the idea together. And I think we're so different that we complement each other really well, because he's such a techie, an engineer. He really gets that side of it, whereas I'm really from the practical kind of front line. What do we need? How am I going to use it? And I think that bringing that marriage of medicine and science to engineering has been really great for us. But without a doubt, we know you can't. No one's perfect. There are areas that I might not have the expertise and he might not have the expertise. And so Proximy is very, very much about the team. It's much more than just me and Talal. It's about the people who have joined us on the journey. It's about the coders. It's about our senior strategy people. We've got people who are in government. We've got people who run big billion-dollar insurance companies, all advising us and sitting on our strategy boards and our advisory boards. And they all bring an element that's valuable to Proximy and something that helps us as a team and as an engine sort of move forward together. And I'm always the first one to raise my hand and say, I don't have expertise in that area, but I can tell you for a fact that in the operating room, this is how we're going to use it. And I still practice. I'm still a surgeon. And so I'm able to see it sort of firsthand all the time in the operating room, how we can make a difference using technologies like augmented reality, like virtual reality, and like others.
Sure. I can imagine that staying a practicing surgeon is really important. You constantly want to be involved. You want to use your product so that you know what your target audience is dealing with. So you mentioned practical. So just going back to the practical point you made, what was it like for both of you starting your companies? I mean, from a practical standpoint, is it that getting up at 5 a.m. kind of vibe, or were you more like, all right, it's cool, see how this goes, this is my mission in life anyway? What was it like for you?
And I think you're so excited about what you're doing. You know, I mean, I'm excited about my work as a surgeon as well, but you know, when you suddenly start thinking that, you know, you could create something that's going to really make a difference, whatever it is, be it in healthcare tech, in an app, you know, whatever it could be, it's so exciting that it completely, you know, engulfs you. It encompasses your being. You become really just sort of really dedicated to it. And, you know, I don't think, and I've trained as a surgeon, I don't think I've ever worked as hard as I've worked with Proximie, but I do it with passion, I do it with love, and with the fact that, you know, we can really sort of make a difference. And I think, I'm sure a lot of people who have done startups before, I'm not alone in this, will say the same thing, that they, you know, get up really early, they work late hours, you know, but I've also got a family, so I'm conscious of the fact that, you know, I need to make time for that as well. But I think, you know, you become so excited that the adrenaline just keeps you going, I think.
Sure. What about you?
So I guess the real answer is, you know, I have very good days and I have very bad days, right? I'll talk to you about the bad days. There are times when you question your life. You know, there are times where you question a lot of things that you've done. And, you know, most people say that having a startup is like the best thing on the planet. It's like the most emotionally draining, like, existing thing that you can be involved with, because you've managed to convince yourself that you need to do this. Then you convince a bunch of people that you need to do this. Then you convince a bunch of investors that you need to do this. And then you wake up and you've got 150 people that you're working with who you employ, right? And you believe in things, but there are days where you're like, oh, you know, is the world collapsing, right? And it's a bit of an emotional journey, right? And so we've got this term that we use internally, which is grit. And essentially it's like, look, you know, you have to have the grit to continue and persevere and persist and be resilient, right, in the face of doom, right? And if anyone tells you there isn't doom, then I don't know what planet their startup is on, right? But on planet Earth, we see a lot of doom, contracts falling through, you know, the app crashing when you're in the middle of a presentation. We've all had those demo experiences. And so the reality is, you know, grit and passion and determination is what gets you through things. And if you don't have that right now, then give up, right? And if you do have it, then at those times where you're seeing gloom, focus your energy on how to get through it.
I almost wish we'd ended on that, but we're still going strong for 10 minutes. No, thank you. And you know, I'm sure there's lots of you in the room that are entrepreneurs yourself that are looking for that kind of, you know, what is it? What is it that matters to me? What is going to get me up early in the morning? So I think that's a great question. And I think part of it is just something you know. You know you're passionate about the work. You know you want to make a difference, you know you want to make a change, and clearly that's what both of you have done and continue to do. So, you've talked to us a little bit about the days, the good days, the bad days, of which there are both, and they're at complete extremes. What is a typical day? Oh, well, actually, let me tell you a funny story. Before sitting on this stage, Nadine and I had a Skype call. We met on Skype. We had a nice little 15-minute chat. Nadine was on a family vacation, but took out the time to speak with me, and also tried to schedule a call with Jean, which didn't quite work out until 6 a.m. this morning when we happened to catch each other on Skype. So definitely, I know your days start early, and I'm sure they go late, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about a typical day, if you can?
Yeah, So I've lost which time zone I'm in most of the time. You know, so I try and build consistency into my day because of the inconsistencies that my day is, right? So I think it's really hard to plan, and everyone builds a plan and builds strategy. But I think the reality is, on a daily basis, I try and deal with what's being executed, what's going well, and then I just spend my entire day focusing on what's not working, right? You know, because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work, right? From the fact that, you know, some people in our organization may be upset that we don't have gluten-free toast, right? To, you know, the fact that I haven't spent, you know, an hour with our engineer talking about, you know, data protection systems for the last month, and now we're going to be ending up in a legal conversation and we need to make sure it's done. So it's actually just a lot of problem fixing, a lot of problem fixing.
Jean is really selling the dream here, hey? It's
I'm
a lot
telling
of
you the truth.
problem fixing, guys. Just
It's
bad days
guys,
all around.
Why would I tell you it? Why would I lie?
No, of course.
Right? The
of
truth
course.
is, it's problem fixing
It's hard
every
work.
day.
Absolutely. What about yourself, Nadine?
So my days vary, you know, no 2 days are the same, and my days are very mixed because, you know, I get up very early. I have 3 young kids, you know, they get them ready, and I'm in the hospital usually by about 6:45 every day, operating probably 2 days a week, clinics the other days. And, you know, proximity is also a big feature in every day. So we've got teams in Boston, London, and Beirut, and so the different time zones actually works very well. So in the very early hours before my operating day starts, I'm usually on a call with the Beirut team going through the day, what the plan is. And, you know, throughout the day, kind of liaising with the guys in London, the senior strategy people going out and talking to different clients. And then usually by the end of my day, it's really kind of middle of the day Boston time. So then it's about spending most of the afternoon with Talal, going through plan and strategy. As I said, no 2 days are the same. I am still practicing surgery full time as well. So it's about balancing and finding the hours in the day to sort of, you know, supply everything. I think what we're very clear is, you know, everyone else at Proximi is full time. So, you know, my time is surgical and Proximi. And so what I do is it's about making sure that they have they're equipped with everything they need to be able to go out and do their job, be it marketing, be it coding, be it whatever. And I think, you know, I surround myself by really great people who deliver on the things that we ask. But, you know, I'm sure, like Jean said, there are days that aren't as good as other days. There are days where you're firefighting, and there's days where you need to sort of sort problems out. And, you know, I'm probably me personally, I get more involved in those because I'm looking at the application of it kind of on an overall setting, whereas different people in the team are focused in different parts of Proximi. But, you know, and we travel a lot as well. You know, we're here in Dubai. I'm flying to China tonight. So it's all about, you know, trying to fit all the different things that we want to do into the day. But, you know, grit is definitely a good word to use. I think with passion, determination, and perseverance, you know, we get through it. And I think there are definitely such great days that it makes up for the bad days that you have.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit more about the technology that both of you are working with. How has it evolved since the start, and where do you see it going in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I guess we built the first version. So as surgeons and developers, the code changed a lot, as you can imagine, once we got real engineers. So we now have like a bunch of groups of individuals who specialize in, you know, things like computer vision and, you know, real systems architecture. Today we are available on mobile devices. So if anyone in this audience hasn't downloaded us already, we're free to download on mobile devices. And then in the next year or two, we will be available on devices that will be used in surgery. So I think surgery is a very interesting space right now. There's a lot of things that are evolving in terms of macro trends, right? Robotics is one macro trend. The fact that surgery is very difficult to reproduce between different surgeons is an interesting trend. The commoditization of some of the implants is an interesting trend. So surgery is highly evolving as a specialty.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit this morning too, when you were mentioning that you're working in different, languages, not coding languages, not developing languages, but you're actually working in English, French.
Yeah, so we're available in English, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, Portuguese. I think we're translating into a language almost every month.
That's amazing, and just to me, really, it echoes that you want to be global, that this should be for the entire world, and that really struck me about the interview that I read with you, where it's like 5 billion people is a lot, and one way to reach them is to make sure that the products that we're building are accessible, and it's huge that you're doing that. What about you, Nadine? I mean, it's such a hard question, but where do you see it going in the future?
And I think we're just, scratching the surface now with all the great work that's happening in AR and VR, and how, technologies like machine learning and AI are really going to disrupt healthcare to a place where we've never been. I think we're just literally getting in there now, and even when we started 2 years ago, the technology has changed so much, and we, as most startups do, you build your prototype in a kind of a basic version, and then you're rebuilding in a much more stable version with the latest versions of technology, AR, VR, etc. Now, I think going forward, there's no doubt that all these technologies are going to disrupt our healthcare. With regards to Proximie, we've got a very interesting development roadmap ahead. We're very interested in continuing looking at AR, but building new AR elements and content into the platform that's going to really enrich that experience much more than just the collaboration between people, but that we can add all the other layers to it as well.
Great. Okay, so we're almost at time. I'd love for you to tell the audience how they can learn a little bit more. I know both of you might be hiring from time to time. You might be looking, you might be interested in learning more. So just tell us quickly how we can best find you online.
I'm available on every social channel that exists, including Snapchat, which I know is very popular in Dubai.
So basically any social channel for touch surgery and you should be good to go. Okay, great. And Nadine, how can people best reach you?
Same, we're on social media channels, also our website, www.proximie.com. And yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm happy to, if anyone's interested in what we're doing or wants to work with us or wants to collaborate with us or even just learn more about what we're doing, very happy to speak to anyone.
All right, so that's proximie.com. So we had Jean from Touch Surgery and Nadine from Proximie. Thank you so much, guys. It was really insightful. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.